Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Batcave, a series of fast-paced political shows aimed at opening the eyes of America to what is currently taking place in our country. I'm your host, Batmobile, and our guest today will be the author of the book Barack Obama and Larry Sinclair, Cocaine, Sex, Lies, and Murder, Mr. Larry Sinclair. Welcome to the show, Larry. It's good to meet you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, Larry, you claimed that back in 1999 you had two homosexual one-night stands with then Illinois Senator Barack Obama. Can you tell us a little about how you met Mr. Obama?
I was actually introduced to Barack Obama by a limo driver named Jagir Mutani from Five Star Limousine Service while I was in the Chicago area on November 6th of 1999.
Okay. Now, can you describe for our listeners exactly what took place between you and Barack Obama as far as sex and drugs are concerned, and what kind of drugs we're talking about?
Well, after being introduced to him, after a short stint talking and drinking at a bar in the Chicago area, I had made a comment about how I could use a line to wake up. Obama had asked me if I was referring to coke, and I said yes. Obama then said he could help me out, and we left in the limo where I gave him $250 to purchase an 8-ball of cocaine. After we had driven around for about 45 minutes and stopped, Obama got out, returned to the limo about 5 minutes later. After he obtained the coke, I began doing a line off of a CD tray that I had rested on his knee. From there, I began massaging his crotch, and he had opened his pants. I began to perform oral sex on him when he took out a crack pipe and had actually asked me to pass him a cigarette lighter that was over in the glass holder on the side.
So this was his crack pipe that
the crack pipe was pulled out of his pocket. He proceeded to smoke crack cocaine, claiming that it actually made him harder in sex.
Okay.
After a little while longer that evening of drinking and drugging and talking, I returned to my hotel. The very next day, Obama showed up at my hotel door in Gurnee, Illinois, unannounced, with more coke, asking for yet another blowjob.
Okay, so what happened with those $250 that you gave?
Oh no, he brought back the 8. He definitely brought the 8-ball of coke for me.
So he got you the drugs, and he brought it back to your hotel.
He did indeed purchase the 8-ball of cocaine for myself. And like I said, I was using lines. He actually pulled out a crack pipe and started smoking crack. He had it in his pocket. It was definitely not something that was a first-time offense.
Wow. Okay, so at the time that you met him, were you aware that he was a senator from Illinois?
Not at all. In fact, he had said that he was in public service, but never exactly specified what public service he was in.
This is interesting. All right. When he was with you, do you remember him mentioning any of his relationships, that he was married, that had kids, anything?
No, actually, he never did. I'm almost convinced that I knew he was married, but that wasn't an issue with me.
Okay. So when did you go public with this relationship, and what were your reasons?
Well, originally, depending on what you mean public, when I went public as far as the public, nobody's actually knowing about it. I posted a video on YouTube on January 17th of 2008. I had actually contacted the Obama campaign in September of 2007, trying to get the campaign to actually just correct the campaign's official position that he had not used drugs since his high school and or college days, depending on which media outlet you chose to believe. Because at one time his campaign had said that he had not used anything since high school. Then he was confronted about it and had actually stated that he hadn't used anything since his college days. And I had actually asked the campaign simply to admit that he was using cocaine and crack cocaine as recently as 1999. The reasons for going public primarily was, here's a candidate that you have that's, he's like taking like wildfire to the college kids across this country. People are saying, that they like him. He's claiming he's this new type of politician, the open and transparency never before seen in U.S. politics, and at the same time he's not quite being that transparent that he's claiming to be.
Right, not at all. Not at all. Now, what was the public reaction that, when you revealed that you'd had a sexual relationship with Mr. Obama? How did the media react?
Do you remember Jimmy Carter's administration? He had this Russian, what was his name, Brzezinski?
Brzezinski. Yeah, I believe it was Brzezinski.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Brzezinski was real good about labeling people psychos and nutcases and mental patients whenever they revealed something that he didn't necessarily think people had a right to know. The public and the media, for the most part, immediately began attacking me. I mean, it went from publishing of claims that I had tried to extort the Obama campaign in November of 2007 out of $100,000, which had no truthfulness to it whatsoever, to individuals claiming that reporters had confirmed that I was locked in a locked mental hospital in Texas in 1999 when I claimed to have been in Chicago, which again had no fact to it whatsoever. I was attacked to the point to where people were anonymously posting that I was had a warrant out for my arrest in Tulsa, Oklahoma for child molestation, which again wasn't true. I mean, the attacks began immediately.
Right.
Some of the media had actually already been in contact with me before I went public. In fact, it was because one reporter had told me that the editors just simply were afraid to even bring up the subject to the campaign that made me go public the way I did. I was contacted by a Chicago Tribune reporter by the name of John Crutzen, who had come out to Duluth, Minnesota, where I lived at the time, and spent 5 days interviewing me, looking at financial records, medical records, phone records, everything.
Right.
So, I mean, it was the normal, attack the messenger as opposed to the message.
Well, but you stood your ground, right? I mean, I remember reading an article that said that you wanted to actually take lie detector tests, and what happened with that, with the lie detector that you offered?
On February 15th, I believe it was, I had posted that I had contacted Jack Tremarco, who was a former FBI polygraph expert. I was attempting to have a polygraph done. I was not looking to have someone else pay for it. On the very same day that I had posted online that I had contacted Jack Tremarco's office, a website, whitehouse.com, that was notoriously known as an internet porn site for years and had disputes with the Clinton administration, all of a sudden posted some challenge. I had no idea who they were or even that they had posted it until I got an email. Let's just say I agreed to their offer. I had put some conditions on the table, which they had originally swore they would abide by, but they didn't. The polygraph came out. They said I failed. One of their experts said that the computer showed I passed. It's clearly in dispute, and it's a subject that the video has just been released on my website of the actual polygraph itself.
Well, one thing that's interesting is that you've always stood your ground as far as your story is concerned, because I've read different articles and seen and heard interviews with you, and it's always been the same story throughout. You have never strayed from it, and for that, I give you complete credit to your, as far as your credibility. Now, can you
appreciate that.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little about your book, Barack Obama and Larry Sinclair, Cocaine, Sex, Lies, and Murder?
I wrote the book. I did a press conference at the National Press Club on June 18th of 2008. I was asked a question at the press conference if I was interested in writing a book or if any offers had been made. And at the time, I had answered the question honestly when I said I had no intentions of writing a book. Shortly after that press conference, I was taken into custody by some U.S. Marshals in D.C. on a completely bogus charge out of Wilmington, Delaware. Right. After that incident where I spent 6 days in the D.C. jail and 3 months of traveling back and forth from Minnesota to Delaware on charges that the Delaware State Attorney General's office dismissed because they knew they had nothing. There was never a charge that should have been filed. I decided I was going to put in book form exactly what had taken place. And I wanted to tell people exactly who I am. I think that the book is an excellent source of getting to know exactly who Larry Sinclair is and has been. I hold no punches as far as my past. I'm completely honest and extremely forthright in my past engaged activities and whatnot. But it's just it basically explains how I originally came about contacting the Obama campaign, what it was that I was asking for, why I decided to go public, and the reaction that resulted from it, from, the misrepresentations by certain media outlets to the personal attacks against me and my family, the threats, the federal investigations by federal agencies for no other reason than to harass. And I just thought that it was something that needed to be told. And if the media wasn't going to raise the questions about Barack Obama's past, then I felt that at least there's a book out there that people can read if they're interested to learn a little bit about the man that's sitting in the White House right now.
Yeah, we really don't know anything. He wasn't properly vetted by the media back in 2008, and that's all coming to a head now. In fact, I've seen articles that says that Mr. Obama is a longtime member of a gay man's club in Chicago, and that also Rahm Emanuel, the Chicago mayor, is also there. So there's so many things going around, and the media is never going to leak any of that. Now let's talk a little about Donald Young, the murdered Chicago choir director from Reverend Wright's Church, who was rumored to have also had a sexual relationship with Barack Obama. Recently, I believe it was on Obama's birthday, you were in front of the White House with a bullhorn demanding that he answers questions about Mr. Young's murder. Can you tell us a little about that?
You're right. Actually, I had obtained a permit from the National Park Service for both August 1st and 4th, Obama's 50th birthday, to raise awareness regarding the fact that Donald Young was murdered, the fact that Donald Young himself had claimed to have had an intimate and sexual relationship over the course of several years with Barack Obama. And I thought it was something that people need to start asking, because the Chicago authorities definitely have not questioned Obama or Jeremiah Wright. And as far as the rumored part about him having a relationship with Obama, Young and I had actually been communicating with each other by cell phone and text message over the course of about 4 to 5 months prior to his murder. It was not until early 2008 before I realized that the person communicating with me was, in fact, the individual that was murdered. On April 1st, I filed a sworn affidavit with the Chicago Police Department concerning the communications between the two of us. The fact that Mr. Young had admitted that he was asked by Barack Obama to make contact with me. I do know that the Chicago police are aware of it. I also know that they waited until the day after Hillary Clinton had beat Obama in the Pennsylvania primary before they had decided to contact me regarding the affidavit.
Yeah, how coincidental, right? Let's see. There's a tabloid article, I don't know if you've seen it, with the mother of the late Mr. Young seeking justice for her murdered son. Can you tell us a little about that, what you know about it, and have you ever met her?
I believe you're referring to a July 2010 Globe magazine article where Norma Jean Young admits to Donald and Barack's very close, or closer than close friendship, and the fact that she acknowledges that she's convinced that her son was murdered to protect Obama's secrets. Norma Jean Young, along with some of her other children, they believe in their heart of hearts that Donald was killed to protect Barack Obama. I believe the same thing. If people ask me why I have come to that conclusion, and why I think that Donald would be killed and yet I wouldn't have been, and I told them it's simple to me. Because of my past, it's easier to try to discredit and attack me because of things that I've done in my past, as opposed to trying to attack and discredit a gentleman who, for all purposes, is an upstanding young man, a successful musician, gospel musician, choir director of the church, elementary math teacher, a gentleman who had actually gone back to get his master's so that he could become a principal in the Chicago public school system. So it was just a matter of, okay, you can attack Larry Sinclair because Larry Sinclair has some things in his past that, people would kind of turn their nose up to. Donald Young didn't. And for Donald Young's relationship with Barack Obama to become public, the media would not have been able to ignore and attack the way they did with me.
Yeah, that's a shame because you're right. I mean, he sounded like an upstanding citizen, and it's a lot easier to discredit somebody who's already got a reputation than somebody who, they'll look at and say, well, this man was, a decent guy. Why would he be lying?
Exactly.
So you're currently working on a new book now titled When One Man Stands. Can you tell us a little about that and what it's going to be about and when it'll be available?
Well, what I'm doing is you're right, I am writing a book that's going to be titled When One Man Stands. What myself and a lot of people who saw the viciousness and the things that people resorted to when I had disclosed the relationship with Barack Obama in 2008, we got to talking, and they were saying, most people would not in a million years believe the things that have taken place and, the things that I've gone through or my family's gone through.
Right.
So what I've decided to do is put together a very detailed, chronologically listed book that shows everything. I mean, from the fake stories, from the hit pieces by Politico journalists that intentionally mislead their readers, that purposely publishes false claims in an attempt to discredit me. The hacking of accounts that law enforcement was very much aware of, threats threats that they would murder me and my attorney and my mother if I showed up at the National Press Club in D.C., that the FBI actually investigated and located the individuals responsible for, but that the U.S. attorneys refused to prosecute and refused to identify to us. I mean, these are things people always say that, the government's capable of doing anything or that, people can get away with murder.
Right.
When One Man Stands is going to show that, people can definitely attack. You can be harassed to levels that you never dreamed of. You can have things said about you and printed about you with no attempt to rebut or make people actually substantiate it. But this is going to be a very interesting, telling book because it's going to have authentic reports from the FBI as well as the United States Secret Service. It's going to name names. I mean, people who have intentionally gone out and tried to ruin other people's lives because they want to ask Barack Obama questions, they need to be exposed for the frauds that they are. And that's what When One Man Stands is going to do. And it's going to let people know that you can still, you can actually be one person and stand up to whoever, whether it's the government or whoever, and demand that the truth be told and not worry or live in fear or have people intimidate you to the point to where you curl up and hide.
Well, that's what's happening in this country right now. It's we're letting government push us around too much, and because I think it's people don't realize that they're being pushed. It's we're still not hungry enough, but we're getting there, and eventually the American people are not going to take anymore, and they're going to say, look, we know that there's a lot of criminals here at the top, and it's time to for them to say bye-bye.
Well, it's like your question about why I went public. I gave the Obama campaign more than 6 months' time to actually simply rephrase their claim as to the extent of his drug use. I never once asked the campaign to disclose the fact that he had homosexual affairs. In fact, I never even raised the issue with anyone from the campaign.
Right.
The only reason it was brought forth in 2008 was because I had explained to people that if I was going to tell the story and the truth, then the whole story had to be told. You couldn't just come out and say, well, I know you were doing crack cocaine in 99, because people are going to come out and say, well, how do you know this? And then you go, well, I was in the back seat going down on him. And then they say, well, how come you didn't say that when you first came out? So it's like, I want people to understand this is not anti-Obama as much as it's anti-fraud in politicians. And it's like I asked people outside the White House on his birthday, how many innocent people have to die or suffer in order to protect another politician's dirty secrets? Donald Young and his family did not deserve to go through what they did, and he definitely did not deserve to die for the protection of Barack Obama not having to answer questions about the fact that he swings both ways.
Yeah, that's the corruption level is just incredible. Not only in this country, but around the world. And we always thought that the United States was better, but looking around now, we have to question that. So, Larry, what is the message that you're trying to tell the American people that the lamestream media and those at the top are keeping you from saying?
Basically that people really need to start asking questions of Obama and stop accepting the script that they're getting from the Obama media. Look, this man, even if you watch the White House Facebook pages and whatnot, this is a guy, and you have a media that are trying to write a history for Barack Obama that is based solely on fantasy, that clearly refuses to acknowledge any facts about the man. The media went after George Bush and even Bill Clinton to a point, demanding accountability and answers to questions.
Right.
Clinton was repeatedly asked about his relationships with Jennifer Flowers and Monica Lewinsky, which he continued to deny until he was busted. But the fact is, they asked him about him. People say, well, what difference does it make? It makes a lot of difference. The fact that Barack Obama's never been asked these questions makes people wonder, is some of what he's been doing since he's been in office based on his fear or his being, threatened by other governments or even other politicians that if you don't do this my way, if you don't agree with me on this publicly, then I'm going to expose you for this. The bottom line is every politician must answer to questions that have been raised. The Young family stood up shortly after Donald's death in Chicago for the first time and raised the question that Barack Obama's campaign was interfering with his murder investigation. From that moment on, the Chicago media just dropped the story. It's like they didn't even want to discuss the fact that Donald Young ever existed, much less that he was murdered, much less that the family clearly believed that he was murdered to protect Obama. It's not right.
No, it's not.
And what I'm saying, and people need to ask the question.
Absolutely. Now, with your book and everything that you've spoken out concerning about Obama and, finding out how Donald Young and others have ended up, do you fear for your own safety, Larry?
It's funny because I'm one of those people that I don't scare very easily when it comes to what another human being could do to you. But at the same time, if I see a cockroach or something, I'm like one of those dizzy women jumping up on a table when you see a mouse running across the floor. I'm the strangest animal when it comes to fear. I don't fear anyone from the Obama camp ever trying to come after me, at least not from a standpoint of physically harming me or taking my life. I do know that the administration did get involved with some doctors back in September last year when I attempted to commit suicide because of the stress of this Parisi thing. And these doctors, believe me, these doctors were telling me that, they were kind of like scared that they were going to lose their life. Huh?
For the listeners that aren't aware, what's the Parisi thing?
Parisi is the individual that owned WhiteHouse.com that did the polygraph exam that you brought up.
Okay.
And he is claiming that the references and the description in my book are untrue as they relate to him and the polygraph, and that he has been defamed or slandered. He's brought a $30 million defamation suit in the federal courts in D.C., which, like I said, he himself was the one that filed the video I mentioned that's up on the web of the polygraph. He's not going to win because everything that's written about him in the book is truthful, and
right.
It's documented, and it's opinion, which, the First Amendment protects. So he's got no claim. But like I said, going back to, I've got doctors who are looking at me, telling me that, they have to do things differently because they've got Secret Service and government officials calling them and telling them all these different things. I've got doctors' reports where they claim that they were told that the Secret Service has been following me for years due to threats against the President and the First Lady. And there's no truth to that. I've never made threats against these people. One Secret Service agent that actually interviewed me made it clear that I've never been accused of it. But those are the things I probably fear happening. As far as someone causing physical harm to me, I think it would be more some of these idiots on the Internet that have devoted the last 3 years of their life in stalking every move that I make, and who have made threats and, made comments about paying people to kidnap me and throw me in a cage and put me in the trunk of a car. I think there's a possibility that some idiot out there trying to make a name for themselves in defending Obama might try to do something, but I don't lose any sleep over it. Whatever happens, happens.
Amazing. Well, Larry, we're going to have to leave it there as we're running out of time, but I'd like to thank you for coming on the show and sharing with us a little of your past relationship with then Illinois State Senator Barack Obama and shedding a little more light on the person in the White House that the media will never let us know the truth about.
Not a problem. I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. The name of the book is Barack Obama and Larry Sinclair, Cocaine, Sex, Lies, and Murder, and it's available on Mr. Sinclair's site, www.larrysinclair.org, or by clicking on the link right here on our Blog Talk Radio show page. America, we have to face facts. The news media is no longer looking out for our best interests. We'll never learn the truth behind the people in our government, who they are, or what they're really trying to do to us, unless we dig for the dirt ourselves. Ask yourselves this: would the American people have voted for the man in the Oval Office today had the media done its job in 2008 and reported the facts of his past homosexual behavior, hard drug use, and other questionable activities surrounding him? Think about it. Until next time, this is your host, Batmobile, thanking you for joining us in the Batcave. God bless.